All right, let's get into it. We're about to unpack one of the most disturbing and frankly complex scandals in modern American history. It's this wild story of incredible wealth, unchecked power, and some really dark secrets. And it all revolves around one single enigmatic figure, Jeffrey Epstein.
So where do we even begin? Well, our story starts, like so many of the darkest parts of this one do, on a private island out in the Caribbean. A place that, from the outside looked like a total paradise. But the locals, they called it something else entirely.
And this really captures the two starkly different realities of that island, Little St. James. So on one hand, you have the heaven version. To the world, it was this 75-acre paradise with guest villas, a helipad for famous visitors, the works. But behind that shiny facade was a truly hellish truth. The locals called it Pedophile Island, a place where girls, some as young as 12, were allegedly trafficked, abused, and trapped. Their passports were taken to make sure there was absolutely no escape.
So who owned this place? Jeffrey Epstein. And his own story is just as shocking. He actually started out as a high school math teacher in Brooklyn, but somehow he leveraged that into a career as a financial advisor to the super rich, building a personal fortune of around $600 million and a network that included some of the most powerful people on the planet.
For years, this whole dark world just operated in the shadows. But then, in 2005, the first thread started to pull. And it all began with a single police complaint from a 14-year-old girl down in Florida. What the police found wasn't just a series of random crimes. No, it was a highly organized operation that worked just like a twisted pyramid scheme. As you can see here, it would start by luring one girl with promises of easy money. After she was abused, she'd get paid extra to recruit her own friends, which created this horrific, self-perpetuating chain of victimization.
The scale of this was just staggering. In only a few months, the Palm Beach police alone identified more than 36 minor victims. And that was just the beginning. They knew there were dozens more they were still trying to track down.
This quote from one of the victims, it's just chilling. It really reveals the predatory nature of the whole operation. She explained that, she was desperate for an opportunity, so she opened up about her difficult past. She realized way too late that this vulnerability was exactly what they were looking for. It made her, in her own words, their perfect type. Now, with an FBI investigation and just overwhelming evidence, you'd think a long prison sentence was a sure thing. But behind the scenes, a federal attorney named Alexander Acosta brokered a secret plea deal with Epstein's lawyers. This deal was astounding. It gave Epstein and his associates total immunity from all federal charges. And, maybe most critically, it was illegally hidden from the victims. And a result of that secret deal? A sentence of just 18 months. And even that was barely a punishment. He was put in a private wing of the county jail and was allowed to go to his luxury office for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He basically just had to sleep at the jail. So after he was released in 2009, Epstein just went right back to his life of luxury, and the whole story kind of faded away. It seemed like the villain had gotten away with it. But a decade later, one journalist decided she would not let this injustice stand. That journalist was Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald. She spent years meticulously reinvestigating the case. It all culminated in her 2018 series Perversion of Justice. Her reporting documented over 80 potential victims and created a public outcry so massive that authorities in New York were basically forced to open a brand new investigation. And this time, the charges stuck. In July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again, this time facing federal sex trafficking charges that could have put him in prison for up to 45 years. It finally seemed like justice was actually going to be served. But then, just 1 month after his arrest, the story took its most dramatic and, let's be honest, controversial twist. This timeline really shows you just how quickly it all ended. So in July, he's arrested. Less than a month later, on August 10th, he's found dead in his cell. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide. But given all the powerful people he was connected to, the public was immediately skeptical, and conspiracy theories just exploded. That skepticism really solidified into a viral slogan: Epstein didn't kill himself. It became a kind of shorthand for the belief that he was silenced to protect other people. And it fueled this massive bipartisan demand for the government to release all of his files to the public. This intense public pressure kicked off a political battle that ended with a judge ordering the release of some of the Epstein files. The question on everyone's mind was simple:
What and who would they reveal?
Well, the documents that were released mentioned a whole list of prominent figures. According to the source material, these included former President Bill Clinton, who is described as a friend of Epstein, and Britain's Prince Andrew, mentioned as a guest on the island. The files also detailed a friendship between Epstein and Donald Trump that spanned 2 decades.
And if we dive a little deeper into the allegations about Donald Trump, the source material claims he flew on Epstein's private plane multiple times. It also points to an email where Epstein himself alleged that Trump knew about the abuse but just stayed silent, along with other really disturbing claims found in an FBI call record and a letter.
But here's the thing. There was a major issue. Even though Congress passed a law demanding their release, what the public actually got to see was just a tiny fraction of the total files. And even those documents were heavily redacted, just covered in black marks, hiding names, dates, and key details.
And the amount of information that's still being kept secret is just immense. It's estimated that over 1 million documents related to the Epstein case are still sealed, completely hidden from public view.
So that leaves us with one really unsettling central question. With over 1 million documents still under lock and key and so many powerful people connected to this scandal, what secrets and what other names are still hidden away in the Epstein files? It's a question that continues to haunt the victims and really demands answers from the public.